Had a percentage on the other page.
We're live. Say hi.
Hi.
Oh, yeah. So there's going to be
Oh, we had a lot.
What's that?
It was gone for a while.
Guys, look who I brought tonight. Tara. she's not excited.
He's enough excited for the both of us.
I told her, I said, you don't have to do it. But maybe we will. Hey, Mike, what's going on, buddy? How are you, pal? Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Got Tara here with us. We're going to just let people join, and then we will get going. Mike called you Tata. Hey, Run Free Strong. How are you, buddy? Tata.
This is a lot.
What do you mean this is a lot?
There's a lot to look at.
Look here.
Okay.
At least look there. You can look wherever you want, but it doesn't really matter. You ready to officially start the recording?
It didn't start yet?
Well, this is on YouTube, but we got to get the one for Spotify. Like, we'll just dive into it.
I guess.
We're good. We are good. How are you, man? How are you? I've been watching you on YouTube and seeing you're doing some stuff as well. So glad you're up and up after Canyons. We're going to talk Canyons actually with Tara as well. All right, let's see how many people are in. Looks good. Looks good. Perfect. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get going. Guys, welcome back tonight. Another co-host, special co-host, someone dear to my heart. My wife, Tara, is going to jump on. Tara, what's up?
Hi.
I'm very excited. I will want Tara to be more a part of like all of these things that I do, but she's more of the consumer side than a producer.
I'm also very Italian, and I just like, I don't know. I'm not as open as you are, but I'm trying.
So I also wanted to bring Tara on because she's a very yin to my yang. She's very different than me and like doesn't have social media. People always ask me all the time, why don't you ever tag your wife?
Don't have Instagram.
Not a social media person. And the few and far times I can get Tara on like this, it's usually when we haven't seen each other for a little bit and you miss me.
Like, this is the only way I can hang out with him tonight, guys. So here we are.
Here we are. But all jokes aside too, I also reference you a lot because you also train very different than me.
Yeah.
As an ultra athlete and a former very, very strong person, and now just a strong person who wishes they were very, very strong.
That's a lot of strongs.
You're not as strong as you used to be.
No.
Either am I. That's what I'm saying. We've traded our strength for endurance.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that.
It's kind of sad.
So that's kind of why Tara's going to be here tonight. And if you guys are here live, please ask questions for Tara. If you are catching this on the playback, welcome. We live stream on Monday nights. And we had our first guest episode the other week. Last Monday, we released an episode with Abby, which got amazing feedback, which also led me to want to get back to a female perspective because there was a lot of follow-up questions that we got for that. And I think what we're going to do is continue to live stream on Mondays because people love it. And then maybe do our guests later in the week or maybe every other. But I'm going to at least try and get Tara on once a month.
That's news to me, people.
Yeah, news. Yeah, once a month because you're always ready. You're staying ready. You're running what 40 miles a week right now, 30 to 40 miles a week right now, and not training for anything.
Yeah, he keeps nagging me to sign up for something, and I still haven't.
I don't know how. I don't know how. Like, I don't know how you cannot be signed up for something. I need to be signed up for 100 things.
Well, I have something on the plan, but it's just not a race.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Hitting the chat real quick. No, Todd, we did Murph in 2004, 5.
I think the last time I did Murph, I was pregnant.
We did, yeah. Like I used to own the CrossFit way back in the day. So, with all due respect to Murph, we did Murph before it was cool.
That's kind of true.
We did Murph, and we're Long Islanders, so we live very, very close.
What's your Murph PR? Do you remember?
Without a vest, I was probably like 35 minutes, 40 minutes. Without
Are
a
you
vest.
sure? Because mine was 46.
Without a vest.
With
With a
I did
vest.
all my pull-ups unbroken.
With a vest, crushed. Over an hour with a vest. I don't know. It's been too long.
Yeah, it has been a while.
I could be just making that up. I don't know. It was a very long time ago. But also, how close we live to Murph. Like, what is he? 4 towns away?
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes away, and close to age to me. So it's being a Long Islander. It also
We knew about him before it was a workout.
Yeah, we knew. Well put. We knew about him before it was a workout. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they had that memorial 4-mile run for him for a while, like even before that workout. Do you remember that one that they have in Patchogue?
They still have that run, don't they?
Yeah.
The run around the lake.
Yeah, but I think that was a thing before CrossFit was a thing.
Because he was a lifeguard and things like that. So there's like a little town.
Yeah, he was like very well known in town.
Yeah, good guy. Not just one of those people that like unfortunately passed away and they were like, oh, he's the greatest guy. He was actually a really good guy. Anyways, so first let's talk canyons. Let's go back to canyons. You raced the 50K. I've talked about it a bunch.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
I don't listen either.
No, well, it's the same as all my friends. I'm always like, they'll ask me questions about things I talked about on the podcast. And I'm like, thanks for listening.
You put up with Brad.
Like, thanks for listening to the podcast. And my buddies would be like, Brad, I get to talk to you in person like all the time. Like, there's no need for me to listen. Same with you. Mm-hmm. And usually when I talk about things on the podcast, it comes up. I mean, we talk about it beforehand, or I'll reference to you like, hey, we did this on the podcast. Mm-hmm. What was your training for canyons like? I first, let me give my perspective. Tara,
about my training?
Yeah, about your training. Tara is somebody that, as long as I've ever known her, like if you give her a training plan, she follows it. Doesn't miss a beat, sometimes to your detriment because you get very, very stressed out about training. But that's like, at least from the outside, one thing that I noticed. So how did you think about your training going into canyons? First, like, why did you sign up for canyons? And it wasn't your first 50K, it was your second or third?
Yeah, that's an interesting story too. I'll tell that.
Okay, so what led you into canyons? And we had a question that you need to throw in there. What was the vert for the 50K at canyons?
Okay. Hi, JJ. Miss you. All right. So that was a lot in one. Well, last year around this time was when we both sat down. Do you remember this? And we were like, oh, so we're going to sign up for an ultra together. So we're both going to sign up for canyons. Cool. So we both signed up for canyons. And then I found out like a day or two later, like in conversation, that he had signed up for the 100-mile and I had signed up for the 50K. I thought we were doing that together. No. We weren't. I was on my own.
Yeah.
So
no.
Once I realized that he was doing a 100-mile race, his first one, and I was doing a 50K, I'm like, you need a crew, number one, because I can't, with good conscience, go into that race knowing that you don't have anyone. So we lined all that up. And then that kind of gave me the go ahead to be like, all right, I'm going to really focus on this as my A race for 2024. Then, so I guess that was like, yeah, it was May. It was probably right after Breakneck, I would say.
Yeah, I signed up. I signed up first week in June, so it was probably the first week in June last year.
So then I panic signed up for an extra 50K because I didn't want canyons to be my first. I literally thought to myself, well, I don't want to fly across the country and do terribly in my first 50K that has over 5,000 feet of climbing. So let me just sign up for an extra one, right. Columbus Day weekend. So I did that one first in Portland, Maine. And that one had about 4,000 feet and ended up being 35 miles. So it was a little long. But yeah, so canyons was supposed to be the first, ended up being the second. I'm glad it wasn't my first because I wouldn't have done as well if it was my first. Like my first, I was so nervous. And I held back, I think, a lot. Like looking back on that race, I could have gone a lot faster than I did.
Like
but I was so nervous.
You were conservative?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was so nervous, and it was really muddy and like rainy that day too.
When the Finns race, it rains.
Yeah. So I forgot what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought.
No, so you could have went faster, and you were glad that that
Oh,
was
yeah,
your
yeah.
first. Yeah.
So I was glad that that was my first because I got a lot of like kinks out of the way. Like, what do I need to carry? Like, what do I need to eat? How much do I don't want to carry with me water wise? And it just gave me a lot of experience and more confidence going into canyons. So I didn't have as much to dial in. So things that I really focused on going into canyons training wise were actually core strength. I found that during Big Brad, that was the name of the first 50K I did, guys.
Big
It
Brad.
makes me feel so awkward saying it. I think I'm just going to call it BB. Can I do that?
You can call it whatever you
Okay,
want.
whatever. So my first 50K, um, I felt like a wet noodle. I just had 2 kids over the past couple years, and I just felt very weak in my core. So I really made sure that I focused on core strength and a lot of obviously lower body strength going into Canyon. So January, February, I focused on squatting. So I did like a couple of front squat cycles, like CrossFit style stuff. A lot of like weighted step ups, one legged step ups, that kind of thing. And then when I got closer to the race, I subbed out those like heavier weight workouts for treadmill vert workouts and really focusing on like increasing my elevation week over week leading into Canyon. So I knew that I would be ready for that, which I totally was.
A lot of questions I get. People know that I coach athletes. They ask me if I coach you.
Mhm.
So, can you clear the air there that I don't coach you? I mean, I'll give you feedback if you ask, but
Yeah.
like you're not on Training Peaks, you didn't follow a plan. Like how are you choosing mileage? Like how are you building a plan for yourself?
Well, the plan that I have was the like skeleton that you had given me that you used for your first 50K.
Mhm.
So I used that and then tweaked it as I needed to fit like my workday schedule, our weekend schedule, which got super hectic leading into the last like couple of weeks. Like honestly, our peak weeks and then into taper, we were in like full on spring sport activity mode for our kids. So we were drowning. I felt like I was drowning for a month and a half.
We were yeah, when it got to peak stuff, and I've talked a lot about that a lot on here, like it was more time than the mileage.
Yeah.
What was your peak mileage? What were your big
I did
weeks?
3 50-mile weeks.
350-mile weeks,
That was a lot for me.
six
There
to
was a
eight,
lot of growing pains in there.
6 to 8 weeks out.
Mhm.
And there's a question in the chat. Are you a perceived effort, heart rate person, or do you go by pace? Like,
Mm.
how are you going on runs?
So for my training runs, I was doing mostly zone 2. The days that I was going on the treadmill in the morning to get vert, I ignored my heart rate and just kind of went for it and did like either interval style workouts or just like hill style workouts. So those I didn't pay attention to my heart rate on. And then for long runs, I was making sure that I was staying in zone 2. As far as the race goes, because that was a completely different story.
Mhm.
Um, maybe I'll touch on that when we get to the race piece because that was actually a really big part of my
Okay.
whole race plan.
Yeah, because the other training question I wanted to ask that people ask me about you is, do you run? How many days a week do you run?
Mm. So I started off 5 days a week running in the beginning of the year, like January, February. And then once my mileage got like above 35 miles, I needed that 6 day. I run in the morning. We are very opposite, which is very helpful for us.
Yes.
Like if we both needed or wanted to run at the same time, like that would be terrible. But he likes to run at night and I prefer to run in the morning. So I did a lot of dark, cold outside runs at 5 a.m. And he did a lot of 7, 8 p.m. runs on the treadmill at night.
Yeah.
Um, what
Yeah.
was I just gonna say?
No, then you were just talking about how you move from 5 days up to 6 days.
Oh, yeah, so then I moved up to 6 days once I got above 35 miles because I just literally didn't have the time to get all my miles in. So Sunday was always kind of like my leftover miles that I, like, just couldn't get to during the week.
Yeah, because one of the downsides of morning training was there's only so early you can get up. So you had to get up and then
Yeah.
also be done in time to do your morning routine, which was generally you could get an hour in, so maybe like 10Ks in the morning.
Mhm. I could get anywhere from 4 to 6 miles in the morning. If I was gonna do 6 miles, I had to have my feet on the pavement by 4:50.
All right.
So those were a lot of early days. Um, I leave the house by 6:45, so it's pretty quick turnaround to get myself ready for work, but I have a lot of stuff set out the night before, usually most of it. so that my morning goes relatively smoothly. Most people will do like a big long run on Saturday and then like maybe a medium long run on Sunday. I did the opposite. I did a lot of medium long runs on Friday into a long run on Saturday.
Mhm.
I liked personally the idea of knowing that I was doing my long runs on very fatigued legs. Like by the time I started my long run for the weekend, I was like above 30 miles already. And a lot of times on Friday, those workouts would have to be split. Like I would do 5 or 6 in the morning and then another 5 or 6 after school. And then I would do my 15 to 20 Saturday morning early. So think like 36 hours, I was getting like probably 20 to 30 miles, and it was a lot.
Yeah, back-to-back long runs, so important.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think anything above the marathon, when you're doing the marathon, you can get one long run in a week. You definitely do more speed work, more pace work, but for ultra, like those back-to-back long runs, they're huge.
And they make the world of a difference. Like from the first 50K to this next one, I felt like a zillion times better in the first one. And I had that like bones hurt feeling that you get when you like run a certain amount of miles over. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but like there's a certain point that you get to where like it's not even your muscles anymore, it's like your bones hurt.
Yeah.
And like I didn't even have that in canyons. Like I felt good the whole time.
What is your nutrition like?
Ooh. Okay. Hey Jacob. um Say that one more time.
What's your nutrition plan?
Oh, nutrition. So Brad nagged me for this for a while too. I had started out eating every hour, and that was not nearly enough. And then I shrunk it down to 45 minutes. So I was eating every 45 minutes. And then actually, once it got warmer out, I was noticing that I was just hungry before the 45 minutes rolled around. So I finally caved to the idea of doing every 30 minutes, which is a chore, guys.
It
It
is.
feels like a chore. When you're just doing a long run on a Saturday or something, like it's not as bad. But during canyons, like by the time I was probably 25, 24 miles in, I guess, I was like, God, this is just annoying now. Like, this is inconvenient. Like, do I really have to keep fueling myself? Like, it was annoying, but it worked. I wasn't hungry at all. I did a salt pill every hour, which I also practiced during long runs, and I found that that helped a lot too. Brad and I are very different in that as well. He likes electrolytes. I don't like I drink them casually, but I don't like them when I work out. I don't like the flavors. Like I think it's just like assaulting on my taste buds to have that. I
Mhm.
prefer just plain water. So I'll drink plain water and then just do salt pills.
And what were you actually eating on those 30 minutes? Same,
Oh,
same as
okay.
me.
So the first 30 minutes I would do a gel, and then that second 30 minute I would do a waffle. So it was every other waffle gel, waffle gel.
Someone in the chat asked, your strength training routine. You mentioned it briefly, but like, what
Mm.
is a strength day look like for you, and what was the frequency of that? Like before you started tapering down, when you were in a build into your peak phase, how much strength were you doing?
Okay, I was probably doing 2 or 3 days a week. One day would be like a heavy front squat day where I was following some kind of like progressive build program, like a 5-3-1 program. Um, just like basic front squat, nothing crazy. And then I would do some extra accessory work with that. So maybe that was weighted step ups, pull ups, kettlebell swings. I did make sure that I did a lot of pull ups and push ups still going into canyons because I wanted to make sure that the pulls weren't going to make my arms tired.
Because they will.
Which sounds silly, but like that was another thing. My arms felt great. Like I can pretty easily do like probably 100 push-ups,
Mhm.
like broken up into sets, and I'm like not sore over the next couple of days. So I think that that really helps when you're,
Yeah.
using poles all day. So that would be one day. It's like front squats and like maybe some like upper body accessory work. And then another day I would be accessory, I call it, where it's like not like an Olympic lift or like a powerlifting kind of thing. It's more just like lunges and air squats and weighted step ups. What do you call those things where you put your leg back and you just do a leg with one squat?
Bulgarian split squat.
Those ones. I don't know. I don't know the name of stuff. I just do a lot of them.
Yeah. Should be
Just
like,
out there doing all the moves.
yeah, that's fine. I know. And you do strength a lot more than me. And we've talked about on this podcast, and I talked about in Abby's episode that, women just by nature are generally not as muscular and strong as far as men. And when it comes to endurance sport, that, the further the race goes, the shortened the gap becomes between men and women. And I think where any gap does happen is in muscular endurance. And it's really, really important for females to, stay on top of that strength and build that strength that maybe they didn't develop early on in life. Because, guys are gym bros and they start lifting early. And you played a college sport, so you've been lifting and stuff your whole life, but that's not typical to a lot of women that are just like entering this sport.
Yeah, lucky for me, I have always had some kind of like strength background. Like I started as a gymnast when I was younger, and then I ended up playing lacrosse in college, and then we did CrossFit like pretty competitively for a bunch of years. Right from college, I transitioned into that, so I carried a lot of strength through that and through my pregnancies, which was really helpful. I think that's why a lot of my both of my pregnancies were relatively easy on me physically, because I was so strong.
Yeah.
That was huge. And now my worst fear is that I'm going to lose all of that strength that I worked so hard and it's just going to fall off of my body, which happens to me when I run a lot. Like in college, my legs were really thin and then I put a lot of weight on in my legs, like muscle weight, like not a big deal, during CrossFit. And I don't remember if I told you this, but one run this past summer, friends that I run with, I know through CrossFit. And one of them said to me like, "Oh my gosh, Tara, like your quad muscles, like they used to be like you'd have that like little like indent and like you don't have that anymore." I'm like, "Oh no." I gotta start squatting more. It's my worst fear.
Do you monitor your weight? Do you even care about it?
Not anymore.
Really? And
No.
not anymore because you run?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, because that's not something we talk about. Every once in a while, you'd be like, I weigh this, but I don't know how much that means. It doesn't mean anything to me.
No, I think that once my mileage got so high, not that I like really lost weight or anything that would make me stop caring. I'm just so focused on other things. Like I could care less how much I weigh.
And we eat. If anything, like if anybody was going to be under nutrition, it would be me. Like
Definitely.
you're a very good breakfast, lunch, dinner. You're a very good eater.
I need 3 meals. I'll get hangry.
Yeah. So now into canyons.
Okay, the race.
Were you ready for that? Did you? Well,
Yeah.
in hindsight now, were you prepared? And then going in, did you feel prepared?
Both, yes.
Okay.
I worked so hard, guys. I worked so hard. I had a great like couple of months of training going into that. It was great.
And so you ran a different course than me too.
I did.
And your race started while I was out there.
Mm-hmm.
My goal, I told them, was to get in before you finished. Didn't happen because you did really, really well.
Thank you.
So how did you go into that race thinking that you were going to pace yourself? What was the effort like? Because did you have any perception of like how fast you could go, or like, were you just like, I would like to go this fast, but I don't really know because the elevation? Like, what was your thought process into, all right, we're at the start line, 3, 2, 1, go. Now here's how I'm going to make that happen.
Okay. So the first 50K took me about 8 hours. Again, it was very, very muddy. So it was a slow course. And I definitely felt like I was being conservative because I didn't want to like run out of steam. So I knew that I like wanted to definitely break 8 hours. Like that felt silly. Like, of course I was going to do that. But the course was long. So my 50K time there, I think was like 7:30. So I knew I wanted to break 7:30. Like that was my like slam dunk goal. Like I knew I would probably definitely do that. Like it wasn't really a concern. I told myself that like I knew I would break 7:30 and I would be happy with that. I wanted to break 7:15. And my reach goal, like I had the best day ever, would be to break 7 hours, which I'm not built like a runner, people. I am just barely 5 feet tall. I am tiny.
I'm not sitting on a book.
I am a tiny person. I am not built for running. So 7 hours sounded like a really aggressive goal for me. That was 13:30 pace. And I'm a math person. So when I think 13:30 pace, I'm like, oh, like that's very manageable. But then when you factor in that you're going to stop for at least 5 minutes at an aid station to wait for the people in front of you to get out of the way, to fill your water bottles, to put them back in your things, and maybe you need sunblock and you need to refill this or that, and then you're off. So, think that you're going to spend 10 to 15 minutes. That eats into that minute per mile quick.
Mhm.
So now you're really you got to move between 11:30 and 12:30 per mile with 5,000 feet. Like that's no joke to have to run at that speed for me. That's a lot. Um, so I went in like mentally very prepared and very confident that I was going to do well and that 7:15 was going to be attainable. And if I broke 7 hours, it would literally be the best day ever. So the race was very conveniently kind of low, I guess, broken up into almost 8 mile chunks. Um, so the first aid station was at about 3 or 4 miles, and I told myself I wasn't going to stop there and I was just going to continue on, which I did. The second aid station, I stopped. So, like that first section, the 7 or 8 days, ooh, whether we can talk about that. That 7 or 8 miles in the beginning was just kind of calm the nerves, don't go out too fast. I made sure that I was watching my heart rate. So, Chris, in the beginning of the race, I watched my heart rate and made sure that I was staying in zone 2. So, my goal was to stay in zone 2 until about mile 23 when I hit a certain aid station, which I'll talk about in a second. And then from there, I was just going to like let it rip and see what happens. So, first 7, very moderate, made sure that I stayed in zone 2 and just whatever, kicked it. Got to that first or the second aid station, refilled on water, like quick, like literally had my waters out, filled them, gone. Under 2 minutes, I would say.
Mhm.
The second 8 mile section was so beautiful. It was just like this great, like rolly trail. I picked up these 2 guys behind me, and like the 3 of us were just chatting the whole time. It went so fast. I stayed in my zone 2, and I think we were clicking off like 10s in there for a while. So, like, that was great. And it was cool still because it was nice and early. So, that was super rolly. We got to that next aid station. I stopped again. I put sunblock on because now it was starting to get hot and I didn't want to burn because we've been in the Northeast winter for the whole winter. And that was
Yeah.
a major concern for me. Like, I don't want to be so burnt. So I put sunblock on, whatever, on my way. That one was probably like 5 minutes.
And to touch upon that quick, because that is a big deal coming out of winter. And
Yeah.
Jacob asked, like, was it an issue for you? Because this was my day 2 out there. And I remember thinking to myself, man, if it was this hot yesterday, I would have been screwed. Did the weather like affect your time or affect how much water you were drinking? Or was it just one of those things where it was just warm and it was just warm?
It didn't affect me too much. I was really nervous about it going into the race because I had watched a lot of videos of people from last year. And apparently last year was like,
90s.
yeah, super, super hot. So I was concerned. And like, I almost brought up to him, like, maybe we should join a gym like that has a sauna for the month leading up to the race and like do some heat training that way. And I don't know, for some reason, we just didn't really do that. Like we said, whatever, we'll figure it out. I think we probably both went on the treadmill a couple of times and kept all the windows shut and just tried to make it hot in there. But kind of what I instead did was mentally going into the race, I kept telling myself, like, you played lacrosse for 4 summers, Tara, in the middle of Maryland in July, all day from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And you survived. It was hot as can be.
Mhm.
And you made it. And you played Final Four in May in Virginia and everywhere else where it was so hot and you can handle heat. Like, you're fine. You've been there. So that was really more of a mental prep. Like, you've been there. You're fine. It's going to be hot. Just drink extra water. Like, don't think about it too much. So the weather, I just kind of tried to ignore. We'll put it like that.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So third 8 mile section.
Right.
Um, had some climbing, not too much, but it had a huge downhill that, and it was very exposed downhill. So that section was a little bit hot, but like, again, nothing crazy. Super, super steep and long, like a 2 mile downhill into like one of the last aid stations that was at mile 23. And I just wanted to really manage my legs there and just make sure that I wasn't going too hard on the downhill and that I wasn't going to have any steam left for that last 8 miles. So again, I was like super conservative there. And I told myself when I get to the next aid station, because I was starting to feel a little, tired and fatigued at that point, that I was going to have my one aid station where I like really stopped, filled up my water, got a Coke. I had to get a bunch of food out of my like the back of my pack because I had so much with me that I couldn't fit it all in the front. So I had stopped, done all of that, put more sunblock on, and I took off there. And there was a big climb out of that aid station. Of course, there's a big drop in and then there's a big climb out. Um, After that Coke, and I put my music on too, I was saving my music for then. I felt so good. Coke jacked me up. I shot out of the aid station like I was shot out of a cannon. I passed a ton of people on the climb out of there. And I got to the top of the climb. And I very specifically remember seeing like a couple standing there and they saw me come out and they were like, whoa, good job, looking strong. I'm like, oh, good. Like, I look as good as I feel. Off we go. I was excited. Sorry. He's giving me the eyes. I'm too loud. So I have a change in volume. That's part of being a good teacher.
Listen, I know.
Anyways, so that last 8, I really went for it. I completely ignored my heart rate. I was in like the 180s. When I looked back, I was like really, really pushing it. I found this one lady. She had come up to me. This is the good story. She came up to me, ran up next to me. She's like, "You've really been pushing me. Like, thanks so much." I'm like, "You pushing me? Like, I've been trying to catch up with you." It was one of those things where like I would pass her on the downhills and I would pass her on uphills, and then on the flats, like she'd be gone. So we were kind of like, back and forth the whole time. And she was like, "Do you want to like try and finish this thing together?" I'm like, "I really want to break 7 hours. Do you think we could do it?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think we can." I'm like, "Okay, let's go." So at that moment, we decided like we were going to try and push each other to get in under 7 hours. And I kid you not, like maybe 20 steps later, this lady took a dive. Like she went down hard.
Snipe.
I felt so bad. I just saw it like out of the corner of my eye. And we had like literally just said, like, "Oh, we're going to push it into 7 hours." And I guess I forgot that I was in a race because I went back for her. And I didn't really give her time to feel bad for herself. I was just kind of like, "You're fine. Your knees are bleeding. You're good. Don't look at them. Just stand up." And I just like pulled her up, linked my arm underneath her, and started dragging her down the trail. I was dragging this woman down the trail. And then a couple steps later, we start running. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, if you didn't pull me up, I'd still be sitting there." So it was very nice. She dusted me.
She gone.
She totally dusted me. It was like a flatter section after that, and she was gone. It was fine. Whatever. Lovely day. So I move along, and I ended up coming in at 7:02.
Just missed it.
My 50K time was 6:54.
That's right. Strava
But my
doesn't lie.
course time was 7:02.
You broke 7 hours. Strava doesn't lie.
Thank you. I was really proud of myself.
We talked. I actually titled this episode about speed work because we're going to talk about the 5K in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Do you think, or did you do speed work for an ultra?
Wait, say that again.
Did you do any speed work in your training? Like, do you think speed work?
No, I wasn't going to run fast.
So, is that like your position on speed work for ultras? Like you don't need to because you're not going to run fast.
I think there's a time and a place for it, and I don't think I'm at that time or that place. I feel very new to ultra running. So right now, like that first 50K was just get to the volume and be able to handle the race. This race was increase the volume and be able to go faster, but my body's still not at a place where it will benefit from speed work because it was still adjusting to a higher volume. So the first 50K, I peaked at probably 40 or 45 miles and probably only did that like once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
So this training cycle, I hit the 50 at least 3 times, and there was a lot of growing pains in there. My body was tired. Like my body couldn't have handled speed work on top of what I was already doing.
So you use stress score to build volume and time on feet as opposed to speed.
Yes.
And at that 50 miles 3 times a week, if you did another 50K, would you incorporate speed work this time? Or does it like depend on the course?
So I feel like I was able to increase my mileage this time, like with this block, because I had that base endurance from the previous block. So going into possibly a third block for a 50K or maybe a 50 miler, we'll see. I would include speed work if I felt good on the volume. I feel like the volume needs to be a priority and I need to be comfortable there and know that I'm not going to injure myself. And if I can handle the volume that's required, then I can make the volume more difficult by adding in speed work.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Run Free Strong says I do speed work to improve running economy, which helps, and totally true. Like I know some people that love speed work for that. And when I say speed work, I think I want to be a little bit more specific. I think of when I think speed work, I think get to the track and do track work. But like this, for me now, wanting to break Javelina, break 24, I'm definitely going to do a lot more like tempo work, like 10K pace work that I didn't do this block. Same, because I wanted to build volume and I wanted to know that I can handle big peak weeks. And now they know I can, I'm going to definitely sprinkle, but I still don't think I'm ever going to end up on the track. I don't know.
I mean, maybe, but I feel like speed work is for a super fast runner that's going to, I don't know, like come in the top 10 or the top 20 in whatever race that they're doing. Like, I'm not that fast yet, so I don't need that speed. I need the volume before I need the speed.
So the speed is kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, which goes into what you're about to say, I think, with what we did yesterday.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about yesterday. But there's another good question. Vert training leading up, did you do similar feat to me? Not you. You definitely built your vert when I started building vert. When I started prioritizing vert, because I was paying for a coach and you weren't. So we definitely bouncing ideas, and I would say like coach is going to be building my vert. Like we're getting to that point now where he's happy with my volume and he's going to start incorporating vert. And I think you started doing the same.
But right, that's when I dropped my strength workouts and started swapping them for vert.
And what did you peak out vert wise? Do you remember?
6,000 for the week.
So you were trying to get to the amount of vert that was in the race, essentially.
Yes. Well, a smidge over, but yeah.
And you did that pretty much 6 to 8 weeks out. You continued to do that. And you were doing pretty well. What you were doing, like one treadmill session, because we don't have vert here. And then on the weekends, you were going out and getting 2,000 or 50 or 2,500 feet.
2 to 4,000
in a workout.
The most we did was the 4,000. But I think at the end, when I got the 6,000, I probably did 2,000 feet on the treadmill and then did 4,000 outside.
Yeah.
On the weekend.
And could you have done more? Like, was that enough?
No, I think it was perfect. My legs felt great. Like when I came out of that last climb after that, like big down into the aid station and then the big out, when I came out of the climb, I was like, all right, like we'll see how much that took out of me. And I started running and was like, wow, like I have a lot of steam left. I'm good to go. And I took off. Like I felt pretty good.
Yeah. Before we get to the 5K and like actually, no, let's talk first. What was recovery like? So what have you done in the last 5 weeks since?
Oh,
because you're not signed up for anything.
You mean recovery, not while I was training, since then?
Yeah, since the race.
Oh, all right. So I took a week off running after the race. I physically felt really good. I was exhausted. Like we had a lot of travel, obviously, on either end, and we had to go right back to work. Both of our flights, the flight there and the flight home, were overnight flights, which I think just demolish you. Like when you lose a night of sleep like that, it just wrecks you. So I was exhausted, but physically I felt okay. So I took the week off. And then the week after that, I probably did like 20 miles. I like didn't even really want to think about it too much.
Yeah.
And now ever since then, I've been doing 30, and I have to start focusing on elevation again for what I'm doing the end of June.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to talk about that because that's dope and I'm jealous of you. Derek asked, Brad, you have alluded to after all the vert, in a way, it made you realize how much faster you felt. Would that be a solid supplement for speed work? Yes. And I really, as a heart rate trainer, I think that it was more beneficial for me in my fitness to have an elevated heart rate once a week. So when I say I didn't do speed work, that does not mean that I didn't raise intensity weekly.
That's a great point.
Which is super important. So I think when I look at my key workouts, I have my long run, my back-to-back, whether that's the day before or the day after, and then one race specific day. And my athletes see the same exact foundation from me that I coach. And that race specific day, if you're a marathon runner trying to PR your marathon, that's going to be track and speed work and interval work and a lot of tempo work. If you're doing an elevation race, like if you're doing something like grindstone, like I have an athlete doing grindstone, he's really not going to do tempo work, speed work. His Tuesday or his key workout for high intensity is going to be getting vert and climbing on the treadmill or climbing outdoors. So I think that when we say no speed work, we have to be careful there of saying like there's a difference between speed work and what that stimulus does as far as intensity. I definitely think I got fitter by climbing uphill, and I think I got faster by climbing uphill slowly. Even though it was slowly, that was my day of getting into zone 3 or even zone 4 heart rate when I would do it. Like granted, I did do a lot of slow grinding uphill, but I also did a large majority of all my zone 2 stuff was pretty much on the treadmill going uphill. And yeah, now that I'm not doing, as I just mentioned, not going to be worried too much about vert for javelina, I still think when I do a lot of my tempo work, it's going to be at some incline, maybe not the 12.5%, but I like doing it on 4 or 5% to get a little bit of vert, but mostly just to boost that heart rate. Because when you run, even when you do, like I would do these workouts on the treadmill where I do like 12.5 for 5 minutes, and then I come back down to 5 for 5 minutes, and I would just rotate that. The 5 felt flat. The 5 fell flat after grinding for 12.5. So I think you just kind of, I hope that answers your question. Like, yes, it definitely made me feel flatter. Like when I got done with the race and I headed back to my local trail here, which is super flat, and I had kind of abandoned it once my coach started really pushing the vert, I would come home and say to Tara, like, wow, I forgot what running on flat feels like. I just feel like I'm gliding over the surface. So, I mean, there's that definitely to be there, but I wouldn't substitute, depending on what your goals are, I wouldn't say that hill climbing is a substitute for speed work if your goal is speed. I don't necessarily think it's going to make you quote unquote faster, but if we look at it from a physiological standpoint, it is going to raise your VO2 max, and raising your VO2 max is just inherently going to make you faster, which now we'll talk about the 5K yesterday, because I think it's a great example. This was a conversation we had in the car ride home. And that's why I really wanted to set the tone for, we don't do speed work. We don't do track work. We just don't. And we
live in zone 2.
We live in zone 2, and we've lived in zone 2 for a long time. And people argue like, yeah, you got faster, but you got faster because you lost weight. You got faster because you strengthened your muscles. Like, granted, but I like to argue and counter with the fact that we stay injury free. We don't have to worry about that, and we can raise our volume pretty high, which is going to raise our VO2 max, which is inherently going to make us faster because we spend so much time at a low intensity in zone 2. So Tara did this 5K last year, and I couldn't do it because I was training for Grindstone. And I knew that, like, I knew the times that I could possibly run. I figured I could push the front of the pace. And being on grass, I wasn't sure, but I just PR'd my mile a couple of weeks back, and I knew that I really wanted to get just a full send in. And also too, we have a summer run series coming up around us, which is this Monday night 5Ks, which is essentially going to be our speed work, I guess, now that we're kind of, it was nice to send yesterday.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was
nice to like not have to look at my watch and just know that, like, because 5Ks are just uncomfortable the whole time.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Like if you're not uncomfortable from the first step, you're doing it wrong.
There's no pacing. I mean,
no, suicide pace the whole time.
The whole time. My first mile was 6:20. My second mile was 7:15. And my third mile was, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But first Tara, 4th female overall, 207. What did I say? 207?
267.
267 females. Tara, first overall.
4th.
I mean, 4th overall. First in your age group.
First in my age group.
First for the 30-year-olds. And went for it.
It was really fun.
And you PR'd by how much over last year?
Well, my Mount Hood PR is still my PR 5K because we were falling down Mount Hood. So we're never going to break those 5Ks, I don't think.
Don't talk about
It's a sore subject for Brad, but it is what it is. So it's my second fastest 5K on Strava anyway. I'm pretty sure in college I ran a 5K faster, but.
When's the last time you sent a 5K? Was it
the Mount Hood when I was falling down the mountain?
And was that just it was more though, wasn't it?
It was 5 miles.
It was 5 miles. And that was your PR 5. Yeah, because we were like gracefully
literally falling down Mount Hood. It was like an 8% downhill the whole time.
Now
It was beautiful.
I said last week on the episode that I wanted to win the race, and I really did. But I also knew like there has to be a realistic standard for like, I'm 42 years old. I don't really know how to send a 5K, and I'm still not fast.
Yeah, your pacing was a little erratic.
So let me talk. About. I ended up being sixth overall, fifth male, and there was almost 400 finishers, and the people. So here's kind of why the pace chart looked like it did. When we stepped up to the line, there was two young guys, and they both had like Fairfield College shirts on, and they looked like a little bit young to be in college, but like
they look like teenagers.
You never know though. With these cross country runners, even a freshman can look like they're.
Spoiler alert: they were teenagers.
Yes. So one was. We found out later, after this. One of them was 14, and the other one was 15. So when we started at the start and they were counting it down, it was the 14-year-old, the 15-year-old wearing their cross country shirts, and there was me, and then another guy who was about my age. And that was kind of it. We established that we were going to start in the front, and it went off hard. And I was like, I'm going to stay with these kids for as long as I can. Kids. I'm going to and we got a half mile in. I looked at my watch and we were going 5:45. And they were starting to pull
5:45, you just said?
At the half mile.
Holy moly.
At a half mile. My PR mile is 5:58. So I kind of had to swallow, and like I was like gasping for air. Like I was full gas.
And half a mile in.
And they were still chatting with each other like, "Oh yeah, it's grassy." And I'm like, "Oh man, if they're cruising at 5:45 pace and they're not even out of breath and they're chatting, that's like their zone 2." I was like, "All right, I'm screwed." So
Plan B.
So there was another guy. I was like, let these kids go off. And the older gentleman that was with us, I was like, I'll kind of stay with him. And there was like another guy who kind of crept up behind us. So we let the 2 kids go off the front, and then the 3 of us kind of kept hammering a little, but the pace dropped in that second half where I came in at 6:23. So that's why my first mile was 6:23, trying to hang out with 14 and 15-year-olds, which you should never do. Mm-hmm. The second mile, the one older gentleman, he started to pull away, and I tried to stay with him, but I knew, like, when somebody just pulls away that you're not going to hang with them. And I kind of let him go. And that's when my second mile went from what it should have been. Like when we finished that first mile, we were probably just over 7-minute pace, but like because of that fast first half. So I really didn't slow that much from like the half mile mark to the end of the second mile. And that ended up being 7:15 or something like that. So we had the kids off the front that you couldn't see. They ended up going like a minute faster than me at the end of the finish. And the older gentleman actually caught one of them. So he was actually second overall, which I'm really second in my age group because of that. He was removed. But in the third mile, I had lost that guy up to the front, and I'd created a gap to the guy behind me. And right as like the 2-mile mark was coming, the first female, she blew by me like I wasn't even moving. I was like, good on you, girl. She was moving. And so I kind of knew that I had 6 locked up, and unless I really needed to, that's why my last mile that's what I'm going to stick with. My last mile was so slow because I was just cruising it in. And I ended up finishing, I think 21:15 or something like that, 6:50 pace. So for me, that's, considering 6:50 a year ago was my lifetime mile PR. Now to go on long grass, I'll take it.
Yeah, that thing would have been too heavy. It would have weighed him down.
Yeah, no, I definitely made sure that I told the people that beat me that I had just recently run a 100.
You did?
Of course I did. Oh, of course I did. I wasn't going down like that. I wasn't going down. Of course I had to be like, yeah, I'm not really built for speed, more of a 100-mile kind of guy.
Oh my God. Who brought this guy to the 5K?
But it was good. My brother was 14th overall, Danny, and smoked his PR by
Yeah,
almost.
he went really fast.
He went 3 minutes faster, a minute per mile over last year.
That's a lot.
Yeah, he's moving. And my mother-in-law PR'd, 62 years old.
My mom ran it.
62 years old. She crushed from last year. Yeah, it was a good race, and it made me excited for the 5Ks that we're going to run this summer. And I generally would just go to them and have a good time, but I really think that I'm going to incorporate them as part of my training. And I think if anything, that will be my weekly speed / tempo work, because there are some 10Ks in there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. So that's our speed work for the ultra. I think if you're going to want to go fast and you have a flatter race that doesn't really worry about vert, I think it's totally cool to get in a couple of 5Ks and just send it. I couldn't go to the track and or I couldn't go out on a training run and push a 5K as hard as I know that I'm going to in all of these summer run series races. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell them what you're doing in June.
Oh, I'm doing the Presidential Traverse.
And for people that don't live in the Northeast,
we are summiting a bunch, the highest presidential peaks in New Hampshire in one day. People do it as usually a 3 to 5 day backpacking trip. And me and 2 of my friends are just going to do it as a fast pack one day.
and
I'm really pumped.
Mileage, elevation,
20 miles, over 10,000 feet. Send prayers for my legs, people.
How many peaks? You're going to give them details, or?
Well, I don't actually know how many peaks. That's a Carrie question. Maybe 6 to 8.
You mean you haven't plotted out the whole route?
I mean, it's in the doc somewhere. I just haven't really looked through it yet.
That's the difference between you and I.
I'm just going to show up. I can't wait. We're just going to be above tree line most of the day, just getting some views and hopefully not some terrible weather, because Mount Washington is known for the worst weather in the Northeast, which is why we're doing it near solstice. The friend that I'm doing it with is a science teacher, so she's been really adamant that we need to do it around solstice because we'll have the most light then, which we'll need.
But we joke about not knowing that, but this goes to the 50K ready. Isn't it nice knowing that you can just kind of put things together?
Yes, it did rain at the 5K.
Of course it rained, Derek. Derek asked in the chat, I raced. Of course it rained. It poured.
I couldn't believe it.
It poured. But you just show up, get it done, because that are you worried? Are you nervous?
No, I'm so excited. I think it's going to be a great day. There might be some low points, I might get hungry or tired, it might be a little shitty, but generally it's going to be awesome. I'm going to be with 2 cool people. We're going to be outside all day. I'm just pumped. Love to be outside. Can't wait.
And what are you going to sign up for next?
I don't know.
She almost signed up for Grindstone.
I did almost sign up for that. But then you signed up for a race that weekend. He keeps doing that.
No,
That's
I didn't.
The thing.
No, I didn't. That weekend is still open.
I thought that was the same weekend that you're doing the 50 miler.
Negative.
The 28th.
The following weekend. We don't want to.
Maybe.
She doesn't want to go to Grindstone because she knows I didn't have a grand old time.
Yeah, that too. I am really considering, what's that muddy one in Wyoming in June or July?
Oh, you want to go do Bighorn?
Oh, I want to do the Bighorn 50, I think. But it looks really muddy, so I'm a little weary of that.
Yeah.
Just because of the experience I had with Big Brad. That was really terrible, being so muddy the whole time. But in the same breath, not so bad. So I don't know. I have my eye on that one. I have my eye on the Black Canyon 100K. You sent that to me. So I've been looking into that a little bit. And there is another one too.
The Gorge Waterfalls.
I don't want to do that one. Do you want to know why?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do the 50K.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Oh, well, if that counts, then I'm going to sign up for that for sure.
Okay.
The Gorge Falls 50K.
And why didn't you want the 100K?
Because it's an out and back.
Great.
I'll just do the One Direction with the 50K. That's good. If I'm going to do it, I'd rather see more stuff. I do it for the views, people. I like the views.
The views are good. Where was this question? So Todd asked, where did he ask that?
Oh, give us
the perspective on the last 17 months with me and the change.
Oh, how so?
Okay.
Like, what do you mean?
What's sobriety been like?
Amazing. It's the best thing ever. Am I not allowed to say that?
No, you can say whatever you want.
It's the best thing that's ever happened to us.
To
I'm
u-
gonna be honest.
to us.
Yeah.
Tell them what a dirtbag I really was without telling them what a dirtbag I really was.
You weren't that's the thing, like, you weren't a dirtbag, you just weren't as great as you could be. And it was kind of one of those things that, like, when we were in it sorry, I'm nervous now. This is, like, a really personal subject. Um, I don't know, when we were in it, you don't realize how bad it is. And then when you're out of it, you're like, "Wow, like, how come I didn't say anything?" And I think I'm gonna might cry a little. I carry a little bit of guilt for letting him get that way and for not, I don't know, telling you to snap the fuck out of it.
You did, you
So,
did, you did, you did some ways, but you never gave me ultimatums.
I would never do that to you.
You never threatened me.
I would never do that to you.
You were just like, hey, you're a little bit of a dirtbag sometimes.
Yeah, well, it's much better now. It's the best thing that's ever happened to us.
Yeah, it's good. But like, also like, tell them because I hear this from me, and it might seem far fetched. Like,
Don't worry about it, Todd. I didn't think it was gonna be that personal either. I just acted that way.
tell them like like you got to see me do an Ironman.
Yeah, which was hard to watch because it was really hard for you because you were so out of shape.
I didn't train
No,
at all.
no,
Just winged it.
no. But I loved watching you train for this. It was really nice.
No, yeah, I never trained.
Yeah, I've never seen him train for anything, and it was just nice to see him so motivated and so focused and not um just like as lackadaisical as he's been with other endurance stuff in the past.
Yeah, we just went to Ironman.
Yeah, you just kind of showed up. It was still fun for me. Probably not very fun for him.
Yeah, we made that cut off an Ironman by 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was a close one. It was pretty dark for a long time.
They had the SAG vehicle out
They did?
telling me go, go, go.
I don't remember that.
Well, you weren't out there.
No, that's true.
You're waiting on the finish line.
I was.
All right, guys. Thanks for the insight.
Was that too much?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Did I say too much?
You could say whatever you want. I'm an open book. That's what I said. You could tell me what a dirtbag I was. I mean,
Like I said, you weren't a dirtbag. You just weren't the best that you could be. And now you're much better.
so we announcing the Brad Ironman Tour 2024 to prove ultras harder. Derek.
No. Nobody got time for that. So inconvenient to do Ironman.
It really is.
It's so inconvenient.
So actually,
everything about it.
We can actually, and thank you, Andrew. Please, guys, if you have any questions, we're going to wrap this up in a minute. But if you have more questions, we will. But one thing we were talking about the other day is my in-laws live out on the North Fork of Long Island, and there's a triathlon that's right there. And we've like kind of wanted to do it the last couple of years, but we've always just had something going on. So we've never done it. And we're like, hey, let's do that sprint triathlon. Like it would be dope. We're fit. We'd probably take it down. We'd probably be first female, first male.
I don't know about that, but
we'd be first female, first male. And that's the same weekend as the Red Wing 60K. And
oh, it is?
Yeah. So we talked about this the other day because I just interviewed Chad Kosi, and he's redoing it. And
I thought it was the weekend between Red Wing and Jigger Johnson.
No, it's the weekend of Red Wing.
Oh.
So we were saying, maybe you'll remember the conversation we had now, that we can spend $200 to go work out for an hour in a sprint try, or we can spend $50 and go do a 60K in the trails. And
I do remember this now.
Yeah, I think the cost of triathlon has just gotten, like, even this 5K that we did.
But I get it, like from a race director's point of view, like, it's inconvenient for us, like it's inconvenient for them. They have a lot of stuff to set up.
I'm not saying they're gaslighting the price. It's way more expensive.
There's
more permits with swimming, ton of insurance,
lifeguards. Like you need like professionals to run stuff.
Bike racks. I used to run triathlon, like operate triathlons. Like I know it is more expensive, but for us, the consumer, like there was this 5K and there was a sprint try the same weekend, the one we just did. And it was the same it was my first triathlon way back in probably 2004, maybe. But the same thing, like I'm not jealous. Like I don't want to be like putting on a wetsuit and getting in the water and just to like, I don't know. And I know personally which is harder. I can't push myself in Ironman, I don't think. It's trail's just that much better.
For now. And who knows, like maybe in a couple of years, he might be like, maybe I will try an Ironman or something. But right now, I think we're just so excited about being in the trails that's kind of just what we want to do right now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
like maybe one day we'll both want to do an Ironman again. But for right now, just take me to the mountains. Leave me there.
And another thing about Ironman too, when I was doing Ironman, I always had the hopes and dreams of qualifying for Hawaii and getting into Kona and going there. And now being an adult and knowing that I know 20 people that have gone to Kona and not one of them has spent less than $15,000 or $20,000 for that trip.
So expensive.
And I'm like, so the drive to do well in Ironman, like when like I know what I can run in a marathon, on a road marathon, which is kind of keeping me from like wanting to go do it. There's a part of me that's like, okay, prove it. That's where I'm at with Ironman. Like I know that I could go sub 13 hours. And my dream when I was doing Ironman was always to finish while the sun was up. I wanted to finish a race not in the dark. And now like I know I could, but there's a part of me that's like, all right, prove it. So Ironman will happen one day.
Guys, this just in. That means that he's going to do an Ironman sometime. Who knows if it's going to be soon or later, but it's going to happen. He just admitted to it. He might not have done it directly, but I know him. He wants to go sub 13 hours, so it's going to have to happen at some point. He knows. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
He's trying to talk himself out of it, but at the end of the day, that's what he really wants. I can see it. It's all over his face.
I mean, yeah.
Caught?
I just don't.
He has nothing else to say.
But the scary thing is, like, I know that I don't have to train for it. Like, if a spot opened up for Lake Placid and somebody was like, "Hey, you want to come do Lake Placid quick?" I would just do it. Like, it would be a 13-hour day. Yeah, I mean, maybe I said legitimately when I turned 45, like I'll go into it when I'm in a new age group. But then again, this would be the only age group I didn't race. I raced.
Really?
Yeah, because 35 to 39 was
before you were 40.
Was Boulder. And then so maybe I missed 30 to 34 too.
Yeah.
I missed 30 to 34. So maybe this would be oh man. Somebody asked, do you think you still enjoy road marathons or are you all in trail?
I think I'm gonna say the same thing that Brad's kind of saying right now. Right now, trails. Maybe one day road, but right now, no interest in road marathon.
You did put in for the New York City Marathon.
Oh, I will. Yeah, I take that back. I'll put in for the New York City Marathon every year because it's the best race on the planet. But other than that, no. I would rather do a trail marathon.
And no off-road triathlons. I'm not trying to fall off my bike. Which is another thing with triathlon. Like we live on a busy island. Like I'm not trying to train. If I train for an Ironman, all my bike riding would be indoors. I'm not going outside.
It's too dangerous here.
Yeah. It's like you're pretty much going to get hit by a car
basically in the city. It's not great.
You're going to get hit by a car 10% of your rides. So it's like, do you want to, I'm not saying like,
or have to ditch your bike because a car is in the way.
That's what I mean. Like, yeah, not like destroy your bike, but like you're going to have a very, very serious altercation with a car 10% of the times you ride. It's not worth it. Yeah. Somebody asked, what's your take on shoes?
Here, I just gave him the eyes.
No, honestly, they know how I am with shoes, so
I just buy whatever shoe he gets and try it out. Like we really are kind of opposite in everything that we do with this stuff. I didn't really realize that until just now. I don't know. One day I hate the Challenger, one day I love it. One day I love my Brooks Cascadia, the next day I hate it. I don't know. I just put a shoe on and I go out the door. I try not to think about it too much because it gives me a headache. And I just don't care enough to look into it. So
like yesterday, she's like,
see.
She's like, I gotta get another pair of Challengers. I'm like, I thought you hate that shoe. And she's like, I don't today.
Like, I just need a new shoe and I don't have the patience to look at other ones. And this one's okay. Like, I don't know.
Speaking of new shoes, Mount to Coast sent me their road triathlon, their road ultra shoe.
Oh.
Road ultra shoe when it comes tomorrow. So look for that review. Pretty pumped about it. And other things before we lock up, some other technical things to look forward to. This week, I am going to release a interview I did with Chad Morrison. I'm sorry, Chris Morrison. What do I call him? Because I have Chad Cosi after that. I was thinking Chad. Chris, I'm sorry, bud. What?
Nothing.
She's looking at me because she doesn't want me to release the episodes yet. What do you guys think? Tell them why.
I think you should space him out.
I can't.
He's got to keep you guys on his toes a little.
Some of them are time sensitive.
I get that.
Like some things I spoke about with Chris.
I have something to ask at the end too.
They need to come out. What do you have to ask?
Well, I want people to send me their favorite 50K or 50-mile races because I really want I guess 50-mile or 100K because that's really the distance that I'm looking towards, but I can't find anything that I want. I'm very picky.
All right. I'll put something on Instagram and I'll put a thing. You guys can DM me.
Thanks.
Yeah. So anyway, Chris Morrison.
Oh, sorry. Mm-hmm.
Chris Morrison's going to be, Tara wants me, we've talked about this on the podcast. They know where I stand with this stuff, but I'm going to at least release Chris because there's time sensitive things in there that need to come out. And then whenever Tara allows me to release Chad's episode, just give me,
I have no control over what he does, people. Zero.
That is not true.
Zero.
That's not true. I'm not that fly by the seat of my pants. I'm just impulsive.
Very impulsive.
Chad's, we didn't really talk time sensitive things. So Chad's could come out. I think I'm going to release Chad's right before Bigfoot because we talked a lot about Bigfoot and, or maybe right before Tahoe, but that's coming up. Because Chad's we talked all the 200s. So Chad's going to be a great 200 episode, 200 miler episode. And then everyone's going to want to hear from Andy Glaze. How long can I hoard Andy Glaze's episode?
You're not supposed to tell them all the people that you're going to have on.
Sorry, I'll edit it out. They know who I'm cool with. No, I'm actually, I'm pacing. Are you still here, Jacob? I'm pacing Jacob at Bigfoot. Chad's a solo, fly by the seat of his pants guy. So you'll hear about that in the episode. All right. I think that's it for us.
Yep.
There's Jacob still here. Jacob's a legend. And thank you for your service, Bar.
Oh, I hope you like that sticker.
What sticker?
Did you send him the picture of the sticker I told you to?
Oh, the God bless the snipers. No, God bless our veterans, especially the snipers.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I know today's not Veterans Day. It's Memorial Day. It's different, but I just want to remind you again, Jacob, thank you so much for your service, bud.
Ooh, Chrissy Mole.
Ooh.
Okay. I will. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, guys, we are going to hop out of here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Hope you enjoyed this episode with Tara. Give her some love in the comment section on YouTube after I...
Or don't. Just let me know.
She sucks.
Don't ever come back again.
No, because I really do want to bring you back once a month. You ready? All right, guys. Thank you so much to the 12 people still here and everybody listening around the world on the replay. We'll catch you next time, guys. Take it easy.